This is the very first episode of the Muscle Cat Sports Show. We're at the Suburban Brew in Goodwood, South Australia, and this is what's happening in international sport. We'll start with golf, and an alligator watched on as Vince Whaley made a shot out of the water for par. That's right, it's the FedEx Cup Fall season, which is a tournament within a tournament, 7 events, which see over 100 golfers trying to earn their cards for the PGA Tour next year. I won't be one of them. I shot 117 this week, although I did play with a guy who shot a 16 on a par 5. And he reckons he went around in 102. To rugby, and South Africa have claimed back-to-back rugby championships with a 2-point win in London over Argentina known as Los Pumas, whilst the All Blacks beat the Wallabies yet again. Although I heard a few Australian fans saying, it's not a real sport anyway, we like cricket, we're good at cricket. Speaking of cricket, only 43 sleeps till the Ashes series begins in Perth, and Australian captain Pat Cummins, the fast bowling sensation, has been ruled out of at least the first test and maybe the whole series. He's got a stress fracture in his back. That's all right though, we still have McGrath and Gillespie and Brett Lee, right? Right. The India versus West Indies test series continues tomorrow. India lead that 2-test series 1-0. I mean, of course they do. They're playing the West Indies. And classic rivals Pakistan and South Africa kick off their own 2-test series on Sunday in Pakistan. The NHL season started yesterday with a 3-2 win for the back-to-back champs, the Florida Panthers, over the perennial strugglers, the Chicago Blackhawks. But the big news came from Edmonton, with Oilers superstar Connor McDavid re-signing for another 2 years at $12.5 million per year, which is comparatively paltry for the talent that he is. To put it in layman's terms, let's imagine that you had carried your workmates for 3 or 4 years. You're the only one who really shows up to the meetings on time. You have to deal with Rhonda from accounts. You're there till 5 p.m. Everyone else leaves at like 4. They're all working from home most days anyway, doing nothing, obviously. And then your boss offers you $75,000 plus benefits instead of the $82,000 plus benefits that you asked for. And Jeff keeps taking your car park, which you've spoken to HR about, but they do nothing about it. You're a nice guy, and you care about the company. You want to see it succeed, and you like your boss, so you don't want to argue. So you just sort of accept it. You sign the contract, but you have reactivated your LinkedIn Premium. So yeah, that's pretty much what's happened with Conor McDavid. Speaking of Connors who are good at sport, the UFC and Conor McGregor has accepted an 18-month ban for missing 3 consecutive doping tests. Although the ban is backdated, so he's free to fight at the White House next July for the 250th American birthday celebrations. Meanwhile, for my 36th birthday celebrations next March, I will be fighting early onset arthritis in my knees. To football, and the EPL has a new ladder leader. Arsenal are at the top of the table after Liverpool have lost consecutive games to Chelsea and Crystal Palace. We are heading into an international break with England playing Wales in a friendly before they take on Latvia in the World Cup qualifiers. NBA, and LeBron James continues to do lame stuff. This week he teased the Decision 2.0, throwing back to the Decision number 1, which was in 2010 when he announced that he would be taking his talents to South Beach, moving from Cleveland to Miami. But this decision, it was just an ad. It was an ad for cognac. And if you think I'm being harsh by saying he continues to do lame stuff, remember when he would pretend to be book smart by reading books in the lockers and making sure people took photos and videos of him? And remember that time that he was quizzed about the book that he was reading?
You're holding the autobiography of Malcolm X. I don't know how far you are into the book, but what's your biggest takeaway so far?
I kind of just started a couple days ago. Read and a lot of notes over the years. It's my first time actually reading this from start to finish. Very smart man. Actually, his words in the 60s and what was going on is actually what's going on today still. It's unbelievable to kind of read something that's coming directly from him. Wish I had an opportunity to meet him. It's a pretty interesting book so far.
See what I mean? Finally, to the NFL, and Arizona Cardinals head coach Jonathan Gannon has been fined $100,000 for this confrontation with player Amari DeMarcado. To put it in context, DeMarcado did celebrate too early with a touchdown, cost his team 6, maybe 7 points, which started the rot, which resulted in the Tennessee Titans, the worst team in the league, coming back from 21-3 to beat the Cardinals in the worst capitulation we have ever seen. And another fine was dished out. Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones was fined $250,000, yes, $250,000 US, for giving the finger to an opposition fan. And the NFL wonders, why don't we have the personalities we used to have in this game? Not because they're dying, although, Jerry, it's probably because you fine them $250,000 for doing that. That's what's happening in international sport. Let's talk baseball playoffs. We've got our very first guest on the Muscle Cat Sports Show, and it's none other than Andrew Reynolds from the Baseball Expats podcast. Rosie, you know how this works. We've practiced it. It's a quick three-minute snapshot of what's happening in the MLB playoffs, because I know the Yankees, I know the Red Sox, I know the Dodgers, but there are some other teams, and one of those isn't even in it anymore. So who wins the MLB and why?
It's a good question, Curt, and my answer today is probably different to what my answer would have been 2 days ago, and that's how crazy the division series have been. Look, I think in the National League, it's largely already been sorted. The Dodgers up 2-0 going back home. They're likely going to win that series against Philadelphia, which is kind of a bummer. I was hoping the Phillies would probably show up a little bit more than what they have, but they have been typical Philadelphia in the playoffs, not able to get it done against the Dodgers. So the Dodgers likely to win that series. The Cubs and Milwaukee are playing currently. Milwaukee's up 2-0 in that series. It has gone back to Wrigley, but you would still expect that Milwaukee with 3 games to win 1. Likely that is the matchup that we'll see in the National League Division Series. I would be shocked if it's not LA versus Milwaukee in the NLCS. In the American League, things have gotten a little bit crazy. Toronto jumped out to a 2-0 lead against New York, and we're leading in Game 3. Yankees come back to win that game. They've got Cam Schlittler on the mound today in Game 4. If they win that, the series goes back to Toronto for a decider, and who knows? The Yankees are favorites in that game today. I'd love to see a Game 5 back in Toronto. That game would be a toss-up. And then I'm really worried about the Mariners. I would love to see the Mariners get to not only an ALCS, but potentially a World Series. They're going back to Seattle for a Game 5 in that series. And Detroit has got Tarek Skubal on the mound, who is likely going to be the American League winner of the Cy Young Award. So Seattle, despite all of their efforts this year, are going to have to beat a Cy Young winner at home in Game 5 to even get to an American League Championship Series. So I think largely the National League is settled. We know the teams that we'll see in the NLCS, barring anything crazy, but the American League is still wide open. I'm hoping that we will get a Toronto-Seattle ALCS, but it's so hard to predict right now what's going to happen in the American League.
That was going to be my next question. Your hopes, a neutral fan, or the neutral fans generally, who do they want in the World Series?
The neutral fans, I think, the baseball purists would be hoping for a Seattle-Milwaukee World Series, which is what Major League Baseball would not be hoping for, right? Major League Baseball would love to see the Yankees and Dodgers again because it rated through the roof last year. It would be a good storyline. The Yankees, could they get their redemption? They would need, obviously, to come back in that series and beat Toronto and to obviously even get to an American League Championship Series. So I think Major League Baseball would love to see LA versus New York for obvious reasons.
Yep.
But as baseball purists would like to see the two teams that have never won a World Series in Seattle and Milwaukee. I think that would be the ultimate World Series. For what's been a crazy 2025 season, why not end with a World Series with those two teams?
Love it, Rosie. Thanks for being the first guest on the Muscle Cat Sports Show. We'll see you in 2 weeks to preview the World Series. And we've got a 20-second sports scandal coming right up. Hansi Cronje was the captain of the South African cricket team in the late 90s and the year 2000. He had it all, money, fame and good looks, but he wanted more money. That's why he accepted bribes from an Indian bookmaker. Others were implicated as well. Cronje got caught, confessed, was banned, was disgraced, although some still loved him, and then just a couple of years later he got on a plane and crashed and died. It's the Bathurst 1000 this week, and we've got James Baldwin, host of the Listen to My Calls podcast, World Rally Championship podcast, also a Muscle Cat Media product. But he knows all there is to know about motorsport. That's why I turn to him in moments like this. And the first question, James, thanks for joining, but Bathurst 1000. I remember as a kid growing up, waking up early, having a Bathurst breakfast, playing with my cars, and ready for an all-day bonanza. It was 45 cars on the grid. It was chaos. There were pros and privateers, good, bad, and the ugly. Now we get 27 professional entries. Am I a pessimist, or is it not quite the same?
No, it's definitely not the same. The grand final of our sport, trademark to Gafey and whoever else works in that broadcast now, is no longer the grand final of the sport because there's now finals, which is very confusing. We'll get to that in just a moment. But is Bathurst, is Supercars still relevant in the motorsport landscape? Supercars drivers will tell you that, yes, of course it is. It's very relevant, very important. But the local, punter will say that it isn't because the Ford versus Holden rivalry is dead and gone. Mm-hmm. It's GM versus Ford now, and Toyota are pushing to enter the field next year with their Supra, who have been doing a bit of show laps and media around the circuit over this week. But I'm not really sure that the excitement is there anymore for Bathurst. I will still watch it, but I certainly am not doing Bathurst breakfasts or anything else. It'll sort of be on in the background whilst I do something completely different. But I'm happy to be proven wrong. If you're a fan of Bathurst and you disagree with me, you're wrong. I think actually it's just an irrelevant sport. But there you go.
Well, put it in the comments. Maybe in hindsight, I shouldn't have got you to preview.
But look, I do. Do you know what? I love all kinds of motorsport.
I know you do.
And I know some of the drivers personally, and I think they're fantastic people and they're fantastic drivers. I think the sport is really at a crossroads, quite honestly. There's a new broadcast deal coming along with Fox Sports for next year. So fingers crossed with Toyota entering with the Super, if I was to put my positive hat on, and I should have it on more often than not, Curtis, it will be a good thing. There is certainly really good racing involved. Fans and pundits like me, or media commentators, I should say, like me, will be negative about it because I think it's just been a bit samey for the last sort of couple of years in this generation of Gen 3 supercars. But, you know, it doesn't take away or subtract from how good the mountain can be because it can throw all kinds of results.
It can, and last year we saw popular winners, Kostecki with all the drama that he had earlier in the season, previous champion, and then there was all sorts going on. And then Todd Hazelwood, who everybody who knows him loves Todd. He's a great guy, well-deserving of success. So that was good to see. Can they go back-to-back? They're paired up again, or Broc Feeney, the championship leader, with Jamie Whincup. What a formidable pairing that is. Feeney's leading the championship, but now there's playoffs. Who wins, and what do these playoffs mean?
I think you're right in terms of the favourites being Triple Eight Racing. So Feeney paired up with Jamie Whincup, who has been called the greatest of all time. Certainly on paper, he's had many, many wins and championships under his belt. But it does come down to what happens on the day. Turn 1 will be the most important part. Well, obviously qualifying to see where they get on the grid, but Turn 1 is always the most important part of this race because you can get punted off into the gravel trap, which exists just on the outside of that turn now, and it's very hard to get out of there. And you're not immune. Doesn't matter if you've qualified first, rather you're starting at the very front of the grid or mid-pack or right at the very back. Someone else can completely ruin your weekend. And certainly for the last endurance where we were at the bend with supercars, Triple Eight had an absolutely woeful time there. And it allowed the Dick Johnson Racing team of Kostecki and Toddy Hazelwood to get up. And it also allowed Cam Waters and Mark Winterbottom to get towards the front too. And so I think there's actually a couple of drivers in the mix here as well. It's not just that favourite of Triple Eight or the dominance of the Red Bull team that we've seen for such a long time in supercars in the last couple of years. I think, without mentioning the word parity too many times, because supercars loves parity in terms of power units for Ford and Holden. I believe there was some testing, or Holden GM, I should say. See, now I'm still stuck back into the 90s.
Oh, we all are. It's fine.
Where's Craig Lowndes? Oh, no, he's still here. But
actually, no, look at where... Here he is. He's right here. That's Craig Lowndes from the 1996 Mobile VR Commodore. There you go.
Yeah, and he, for some reason, is still racing. In fact, actually, I'm going to tangent here slightly, but Triple Eight, he's saying goodbye to Triple Eight because he's staying with GM.
Yep.
And they're moving to Ford, and so there's a celebration livery and all about Craig Lowndes going the weekend. I mean, I've spent a bit of time with Lowndes. An absolute legend of a guy. I still don't know how he's still racing and he's still so fast. Like that's the
didn't bring you any to name drop, mate, but whatever, that's fine.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I mean, is it a name drop again with supercars? I don't know, probably not. Would you like to talk about Formula One drivers or World Rally Championship drivers? But I think honestly, when it comes down to who's going to win, how long is a piece of string? There are obviously the favourites, but so many things can happen. Personally, I would love to see Toddy Hazelwood and Kostecki go back-to-back. I think this change for Kostecki out of what was a very negative environment for him and being positive now with Dick Johnson Racing and Todd Hazelwood getting the win last year with, as you quite rightly said, everyone I think in supercars loves this man. He has had to really, really fight his way to prove himself to be on the grid. And certainly with a drive like he's had last year, and again with the first endurance round at the Bend, and now with Bathurst coming up, he's potentially proving himself to be a full-time driver. It's like the opposite of what someone like Mark Winterbottom has done, where he's come out of full-time drive and then gone to join Cam Waters and co-drive since. Nick Percat, also, for example, he's stepping out of full-time supercars. That was a retirement announcement that happened this week too. So there are options now for someone like Todd Hazelwood if he can get it done. But I think for Frosty and for Cam Waters too, Tickford have been there or thereabouts so many times, and it could be a good opportunity for them to convert. Again, DJR, Triple Eight. You've got Matt Payne as well with Penrite Racing. So I think it's going to be genuinely a really interesting race. Strategy will come into it. So the teams will really have to lend themselves towards playing the long game as well as the drivers performing on track too.
Absolutely. I think it was it Mostert and Paul Morris all those years ago who came from last to first in Bathurst? So qualifying's one thing, but it's not the be-all and end-all in what is always a crazy race. Well, it used to be, and I hope it is again this year. James Baldwin, thanks for joining us, mate. We appreciate it, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, mate.
That's the very first edition of the Muscle Cat Sports Show, but we have a Monday show, a live call-in show from Muscle Cat Studios, live stream on YouTube. You can get involved. You can click the link and talk to me. Come and talk to me about whatever you want. I mean, preferably international sport, but hey, if you've got problems you want me to work through for you, sure, I'll give them a crack. That's Monday night, the phone-in show. Before you go, please hit subscribe. Please leave a review, leave a comment. Just get involved and tell people about the show. Thanks for watching. We'll see you Monday.